Hi, Christopher here, and I want to talk about a book that is available on Amazon.com right now for both Kindle and print on demand. It's called Harbinger Down, a pictorial journey through the production of a practical effects film. And this is a book that I wrote, designed, put together, and published with permission from Alec Gillis, the director of Harbinger Down at Studio ADI. If you're not familiar with Harbinger Down, go check it out because it's a really fun film. It was made on a very limited budget by Studio ADI, starring Lance Henriksen, Camille Balsamo, and Matt Winston, among others. It's actually a really great cast. This is a fun movie which was made out of a great deal of passion for practical effects, and I was privileged to be a small part of it. I was involved in the Kickstarter to help raise the money for it, and I really love this. It was born out of Studio ADI's Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. Frustration at creating wonderful practical effects pieces and ultimately always having them having them painted over by CGI. You know, they got paid, but they really do care about the effects. So anyway, when they made Harbinger Down, I thought the work they did was fantastic. It wasn't done on the huge budget that The Thing 2011 prequel, which is one of the movies I'm referring to, came out. That had a much bigger budget, but they raised some money and they did a lot of low budget film tricks, a lot of clever stage work. They built sets, they built practical effects creatures, puppets, miniatures. It was just a beautiful endeavor, and the result is kind of this homage to not only John Carpenter's The Thing and Ridley Scott's Alien, but the filmmaking spirit that made people like Roger Corman so great. So there's some great creatures in here, and so anyway, Alec came over for dinner one night, and I said, Alec, I would really love to do a making of Harbinger Down book. So he very graciously granted me access to thousands upon thousands of behind-the-scenes photos that were taken during the production of just about every aspect of this film. And I had the task of sorting through them all, picking out the very best, at least I hope were the very best. There's a lot that get left out that I thought were also really cool. But I want to talk a bit about retouching them, because when you get photos, now this is the most extreme example, but you get photos and you are instantly aware that they were not taken with the intent of going into a book. A lot of them are just snaps. This one is a day where Lance Henriksen, who stars in Harbinger Down, Tom Woodruff Jr., Alec Gillis, and Sultan Saeed Al Demarco, I hope I'm saying that right, my apologies if I'm not, were in the studio together, and they took some pictures holding this poster. Now, I'm going to turn off all these layers and show you what the picture originally looked like. Now, so no disrespect meant to whoever took this picture. I don't think they were, setting up for professional photos. It's dark in the ADI showroom, and they just decided to take a few snaps. So there were, I looked for them. I couldn't find them. There was about 20 of these photos that they took, and this was the best one, but all the photos had, one way or another, something wrong with it. They were all dark. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I did to fix that. Now, the first thing here is Lance was always smiling in the photos, always looked great, except for in this photo. But in all the other photos, everybody else had, one person or another was making a face or looking the wrong way. So I decided this one was the best one to take a look at. But Lance was looking off, so I went and found from another one of the photos a better photo of Lance and I just replaced it. I replaced his head. So there you go. He's not smiling in this one, but he's looking directly at the camera, and he has an air of seriousness to him. He's a serious actor. He's actually, in my experience and stories I'm told, he's actually a very fun-loving, happy-go-lucky, salt-of-the-earth type of guy who's always a pleasure to be around. But I liked this look, and I felt like, he's looking at the camera. Everyone else is looking at the camera. And but you can see this kind of some added stuff around him. His ear from the previous photo is still there. So I went in and I kind of painted around him, cleaned that up. And another issue is over here we see it's a poster for the Santa Claus and Tremors, which are cool, but I just felt like this was kind of distracting from the photo that was going on. It just kind of kept pulling your eye this way. So I thought a little bit of Boku. So I created another layer, and I just added a blur and painted it out, or painted it in using an adjustment layer. So now one of the other things is they're holding this poster, and it's cool, but it's hard to see the image. We have glare from the showroom lights, which are halogen lights on the ceiling, and the poster's kind of washed out. So I actually took an image of the poster and comped it in and used another mask, layer mask, to paint around their fingers. And then we added some brightness. And let me back this up a little bit. So the lights are still coming down, but I just wanted the lights to kind of brighten them up, and I also painted so it looks like the lights are kind of coming down at an angle at them. So we wanted to change the color, so we have an adjustment layer, and instantly that looks a lot better. So we have over here in my control panels, we just added some more blue on to the midtones, and I believe, did we do more with the shadows? No, we didn't mess with the shadows. We did mess with the highlights a little bit. By we, I say me, so I must be referring to the royal we. Anyway, so it's looking much better, but we still want to go in and kind of paint in some more light. So we added some levels, we messed with the levels a little bit, and we just painted in some more light and brightened it up. And then we desaturated it a little bit because, as you can see, with all this color correction we're doing, it's really saturated. So we just wanted to lighten it up a little bit and then add some levels. So the levels kind of add a little more contrast. So we have actually two level layers here. So overall, you can see it makes a big difference. Like I said, this is the most extreme photo retouch that I did. I really wanted to have a great kind of piece that showed the core group of people who were getting together to make sure that this film got made. Now, there were literally hundreds of people that did that, but Tom and Alec, obviously the heart of Studio ADI, they're the co-founders. Lance brings the star power, and Sultan was the main investor outside of the Kickstarter. So this was really a great group photo to show the main powerhouse behind this poster. And I really wanted it to be there in the book. So that's one example. Now, in general, we have, let's see, here's a page from the book just showing people hard at work. And I'm just going to click through really quick. Let's collapse this folder and this folder just to show you. Let's see, what's a good example? Let's go down to actually the creature here. Now, this is a smaller picture, but this is the Chandelier creature, as it was referred to after it was finished. So let's see. Let me make sure I've got the right group. There we go. Always name your layers appropriately, like I don't. So let's again turn off all of these layers. So this is what the Chandelier picture photo looked like. It's just a snapshot, but if you see this thing in person, the colors and the detail really stand out. So I wanted to make sure in the photograph that the colors and details really stood out. So the first thing I did was I added a layer to kind of just bump up the contrast. And this was done using, let's go into Windows, filter. So what you do is you go and you create a high pass. And I think, let's see, the high pass, was it up to 5.6? I think I had the high pass radius up to about 10 pixels. Let's cancel that. And then you'll notice that the blend mode is soft light. So this just kind of adds a sharpness to the image. And then I went and painted in the highlights just to really bring out, if you notice, it really brings out the shape. Let's see how much I can zoom in before we start to get pixelated. But it kind of helps bring out the shape. So we have the high pass and the highlights, bringing out the clarity of the image and the shape. And then we added some shadows in the same way, just to really kind of bring out the full depth shape that the artist who created this kind of brought out in the creature. I wanted to be able to demonstrate that. Then we added some levels to brighten it up. And then we added some color, again, bringing a little bit more blue into the image. I noticed that most of the images that I got had a little bit too much yellow in them. So blue is complementary to yellow, so that kind of canceled that out. And then here, we just added a slight bit of saturation, and then of course we have this image. Now I did this with all of these images here, even people hard at work. So let's kind of, we have her hard at work. Now image is kind of flat. So we just, again, we painted in some highlights. I figured she, spent some time getting that nice color in her hair. So wanted to complement that by bringing some highlights out into it and bringing some focus into here. She's working on something, so we want to be able to see it. Once again, we added a high pass layer to just bring out some detail and bring in those shadows just to give some depth to the image. Then we brightened it again, added a little bit more blue, and then an extra little highlight to the hair with some hue and saturation there. Moving on, here's the cover. Now the cover I had this image for, and I really wanted to have show that this was a special effects miniature puppet, just like we see here. But because it's the cover, I wanted to bring the mood of the movie into it. So we added all this lighting. So here's all the text. The logo was provided for me, provided to me, so that I could add it in. And then I added in a pictorial journey through the production of a practical effects film. You wonder if the making of Harbinger Down would have been easier. Anyway, so we just, added some lighting around that to kind of really complement the rest of the logo. Whoever designed this logo did a marvelous job. I really like it. So again, let's kind of go through all of these and just kind of show you what we did. So here's the original image. Let's get rid of the font as well. By the way, leave a comment. Tell me what you think of these. I do try and make quality videos, but I find that it's easier to just talk to you while I go through this stuff, and B, people seem to prefer it to the fully edited presentations. I am going to do one about the book. If you see my making of Ray Bradbury Live Forever 13-minute mini documentary also on this channel, I really enjoyed editing that together and getting the interviews, doing the interviews. So I do enjoy doing the more professional presentations, but I also like just kind of being able to talk about this stuff. But anyway, let's go on with this guy here. I don't know if he's got a name, but I wanted to add some depth. So we added kind of a little bit of a darker edge here to kind of pop him out and then pop out the details. And then same thing, we added highlights. So highlights and shadows really do make a big difference when adding depth to this character. This is a beautifully sculpted, created, and painted puppet by artist Tim Martin. And I really wanted to make sure that all the detail popped out. So anyway, we added a little bit of blur at the top as well, top and bottom, just to give it a little bit of depth, give it the sense of scale. This is a miniature, and in this instance, I kind of wanted to show that it was a miniature. And then we brightened up all around it, again, to pop it out. You can see it kind of really brings in the highlights, but we still have the depth from the shadows. And then, now, I added red here. Now, you're wondering, why did you do that? Again, this does kind of help make it a little more fleshy, but what it really is for this layer here. So when you turn off that layer, you kind of see it's color-wise, it's a bit flat, but if we add in those little red bits, it again intensifies the depth kind of around his sort of kind of neck and within his mouth. So I really felt that helped a lot. And then we added a bit more boku and really punched up those highlights now. So, and then this one's hard to see, but we added, I added a bit more, or a bit more saturation to certain parts I painted in to kind of bring them up. And then of course we add the text. So you can see a big difference. Again, I wanted to present Tim Martin's wonderful work as the cover, but I also wanted to bring in the mood. So it kind of suggested the creatures in the movie, in the moment. So that's about it for this installment. I'm going to leave a link to the book, The Making of Harbinger Down, and a link to the movie Harbinger Down, as well as the Studio ADI Big Cartel store, because there's other wonderful items there. But I'd really like to encourage you to get the book if you're a fan of owning collectible books that give you behind-the-scenes looks. I have got all these H.R. Giger books, and Making of Alien, and Making of Young Frankenstein is another great one. But all these special effects driven movies, I love getting books that take you behind the scenes. So I wanted to create one myself that would be something like I used to flip through when I was a kid and dream of being a filmmaker, which I am now. I'm going to do another one of these videos. Like I said, I'll do a kind of a fully edited professional presentation pitching the book, or it'll be it's kind of a half documentary, half commercial for the book. But if you're a fan of these types of books, please check out the link and order yourself a copy. It's kind of a smaller book, but it's packed full of some great photos. Next time, I'm going to talk a little bit about my work on Harbinger Down as a concept designer. This is one of my concept designs, so I'll take you through how I created this image. Kind of the downside of being a concept designer is you come up with these great images and they don't get used, but there is good reason for why they weren't used. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that design process was, how I came to be one of the concept designers, some of the reasons that they were rejected, and not because they weren't liked. It's more to it than that. It's not just, hey man, he didn't use my image because it sucked. These images were well received, but there were logistical reasons why they couldn't be used, or more time couldn't be spent on them. But I did have I did have fun designing them, and I want to talk about them, and they are in the book, along with some designs from some other great artists. But ultimately, the great designs that ended up in the movie, most of that I'm going to say goes to Tim Martin, as well as Steve Norrington. And so the miniature work was fantastic. So I'll be back with more videos about the book, The Making of Harbinger Down. I'm just going to call it for abbreviated purposes, but it is actually at Amazon, and Harbinger Down, a pictorial journey through the production of a practical effects film. I came up with that title. It's my fault, but I wanted a title that said exactly what you're getting. So thanks very much for listening. I will be back with more very soon. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Like this video, hit the notification button when you subscribe. That's the bell, and I will be back with more. Thank you very much.